You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Week in Review, the show that reveals facts, truth, research, and statistics and never messes around. We lay down the entire truth about everything regarding your Detroit and Michigan sports teams, no matter if it's good or bad. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at michigansportstruth.com and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth. The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Episode 303 is in session. Taylor Phillips flying solo. Buck Jenner has some personal family matters to attend to. He'll catch up with me later this week on Talk Show. That being said, I'm flying solo. Yeah, I already said that. But again, apologize for any inconvenience, if there is any. But I'm the only one standing here. But that being said, we have a ton to discuss over the past week. Let's get down to it.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
The Lions hire former Boston College Eagles defensive lineman coach Paul Pasqualoni as their new defensive coordinator. And that appears to be clearly a Matt Patricia recruit. It kind of reminds me of when the Michigan State Spartans first hired Mark D'Antonio after firing John L. Smith. Mark D'Antonio recruited his own coaching staff, including Mike Treadwell, the offensive coordinator, and Pat Narduzzi, the defensive coordinator. And it seems to us, Matt Patricia and Paul Pasqualoni each have a connection, just like he has with those three assistant coaches that the Lions hired the week before. That's according to Adam Schefter. And in the same week, on the same day, they extend General Manager Bob Quinn to a 5-year extension to match the duration of Matt Patricia's contract with the Lions, which is 5 years. And that's a sign where Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are almost alike. They're both former members of the New England Patriots organization. Matt Patricia was a defensive coordinator heading to Super Bowl 52, where his defensive unit players were just playing a fluke game against a 14-2 Philadelphia Eagles team, who finally who got their franchise their first ever Super Bowl. And again, you can't blame Matt Patricia for it. The players let him down. Too many missed tackles and coverages. Not to mention that Doug Peterson 4th and goal play. It was a trick play. There was nothing anybody could do. Not on the field, not on the sidelines. But again, even though the Lions still have Jim Bob Cooter as their offensive coordinator, which we mentioned last week, the Lions coaching staff is full, and it's all set for 2018 in the fall. That being said, time to transition to college basketball.
Valentine for the win!
Man, despite all the allegations of sexual assault involving Larry Nassar, involving Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio, the Michigan State Spartans basketball team still keeps finding ways to win. They trailed the Iowa Hawkeyes in Iowa City by as many as 7, and they came back to beat the Hawkeyes 96-93. Despite Miles Bridges missing the last 2 free throws in the dying seconds of the second half, he was 7 for 7 at the stripe going into that event, going into that point. But the Hawkeyes just couldn't quite tie it up. It was this close, just a hair close. It was just off the heel, was that longer than mid-court heave at the buzzer. The Spartans still ranked 4th, or still ranked in the top 5. Then when they were 4th ranked, they were welcoming in the third ranked Purdue Boilermakers. And man, was it a battle of epic proportions. Was it a battle of epic proportions or what? And the Spartans actually came up with a 68-65 win. Miles Bridges with his game-winning three-pointer with less than 3 seconds left. Now, initially, if anyone wants to make a dumb argument with me on exactly how much time was left when the ball went in the hoop, it was initially on live television at 2.6 seconds at the initial time stoppage. But it was the officiating crew's job to go to video review, and they went to video review, and when they reviewed it, they saw exactly 2.7 seconds left on the clock at the exact time the basketball went into the basket. I'm not making this up. That's all I can say. And that's as far as I can go. And jokers like Miguel Locuda want to take the argument too far, and I decided to block him on Twitter. He decides to go. He decided to play stupid with me. But moving on, the Spartans get yet another win. They beat another top 5 team. In fact, a top 3 team in the country, for goodness sakes. But it was number 3 versus number 4 in East Lansing. I can hardly at least doubt, or could, to say the least, hardly tell if there are any ranking changes between Purdue and MSU nationally. And I know they're both in the conference, but that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the national AP poll rankings, 3 and 4. Purdue was 3, Michigan State 4. Spartans are at Minnesota Tuesday at 9. And then home against Northwestern Saturday at 2 on Fox. The Minnesota game is on ESPN2, by the way. Northwestern.
For 3, yes, sir.
Speaking of Northwestern, the Wildcats upset the 20th ranked Michigan Wolverines 61-52. Looked like Mo Wagner was almost the only Wolverine to step up. Not very many Wolverine players other than him could score much. I'm not going to single anybody out. They could have scored more points. But then the Wolverines went into Madison, Wisconsin at Kohl Center and beat the Wisconsin Badgers. They rebounded nicely. Wisconsin is not a good basketball team, not as good of a basketball team even at home in Wisconsin as we think they usually are. And Michigan kept them in check, 83-72 in their favor. In the favor of the guys from Ann Arbor. Now, they're home against the Iowa Hawkeyes. They took care of the Hawkeyes in very early January 2nd, in Iowa City. I think they won by 8. They led by more than just double digits. They led by almost 20. Iowa could get to as close as like 7 or 8. But Michigan won very big at Iowa City. And they're going to smash the Hawkeyes again in Ann Arbor Wednesday at 6:30 on BTN. And then the rematch between the Wolverines and the Buckeyes Sunday at 1 on CBS in Ann Arbor. Wolverines relinquished a 20-some-odd lead in Columbus just about 10 days later at Value City Arena, and they lost by 11, is what I think I remember. Let's see if the Wolverines can get revenge. But then again, we can hardly tell where the Wolverines stand in the AP poll rankings. Now to the MAC Roundup. My Central Michigan Chippewas lost to a very good Buffalo Bulls team, 88-82, which I think was understandable. The Buffalo Bulls have a very good record, and they lead the MAC East division. In fact, I think they lead the MAC, the entire Mid-American Conference. That's one thing. But what really pissed me off was CMU losing to Akron, a not so good team, the Zips, on the road, 69-63. Kevin McKay off the bench, leading and scoring with only 14 points. Cecil Williams also had 14 points, but they were both co-leading in scoring, but that was it. Josh Kaczynski with 5 points. David DeLeo with, I think, 10. That was just not much scoring, especially from the starters. So it looks to me, from that game on, they seem to be starting to trend downward again after a nice comeback toward the 500 mark. They're at the Northern Illinois Huskies Tuesday at 8. Then the rematch at McGurk Arena against the Eastern Michigan Eagles Saturday at 4:30. The Eagles beat CMU last time in Ypsilanti. They beat the Kent State Golden Flashes 71-67 in Kent, Ohio, but then lost in overtime 70-63 at the Bowling Green Falcons. Another sub-500 team. overall. But this is just the mediocre American Conference. The Western Michigan Broncos got two nice wins, 68-64 over the Miami, Ohio Redhawks, and 69-60 over the Ohio Bobcats, both at home at University Arena in Kalamazoo. They go to Bowling Green and take on the aforementioned Falcons Tuesday at 7, and at the Northern Illinois Huskies Saturday at 4:30. So that transitions us from college to pro basketball in the Detroit Pistons.
Left sideline three, and he answers.
Now, I got some good news and some bad news. The good news is the Pistons traded center Willie Reed, who was suspended 6 games for domestic violence, that incident, which came from last summer, to the Chicago Bulls, along with a second-round draft pick for veteran guard Jameer Nelson. And they traded power forward Brice Johnson, another reserve scrub. And Willie Reed's a reserve scrub too. He doesn't intend to. Well, he's just not that good. Neither is Brice Johnson, but they trade Brice Johnson and another second rounder for James Ennis. Which is a forward. The Pistons, it appears, still have no backup center. That's the bad news. That was a day after the Brooklyn Nets came into town and the Pistons beat them, got the revenge, 115-107. Andre Drummond, 17 points, 27 rebounds. And then after those two trades, since those two trades, they lost 2 straight. At home to the Clippers with Avery Bradley, Tobias Harris, and Boban Marjanovic, which they obviously didn't need, 108-95 the final. Then they went to Phillips Arena in Atlanta and gave up 118 points to the worst team in the NBA record-wise, 17-39, the Hawks. And they lost 118-115 as a result. There was not much defense, just a little bit of defense from Andre Drummond. Nobody else could play defense. Andre Drummond with 3 blocks, that's it. The Pistons have gone back to not playing good defense again. And they're taking on a New Orleans Pelicans team Monday at 7. That is tomorrow. The Pelicans still in the playoff picture, 8th place in the Western Conference. Then the Pistons welcome those Hawks to Little Caesars Arena Wednesday at 7 before hitting the All-Star break, the NBA All-Star break, that is. Then a week from Friday, they're home against the top-seeded Boston Celtics. That's going to be a big one. That's all I can tell you. I also found out a few days earlier from Rod Beard from the Detroit News on Twitter at @DetNewsRodBeard. He tweeted, confirmed that the Pistons have been approved for a disabled player exception, DPE for short, for backup center John Lure, who had season-ending ankle surgery. They get around $5.25 million in additional cap room if they swing a trade. Now, Shams Charania was the first to report. And that's where Rod Beard got that from. Now, some fans may miss John Lure anyway, but here's the thing. John Lure is not that good. Even as a backup center, he's absolutely atrocious. He's been absolutely atrocious at the beginning of the season. John Lure, he played awful at the beginning of the season before he suffered that season-ending surgery. I want you to think about that for a minute, guys. Pistons 5-0 since the Blake Griffin trade. And then 0-2 since the Willie Reed Nelson trade and the Johnson Ennis trade. At least Reed is gone. He was suspended 6 games for domestic violence from last summer. He was arrested last summer for that, or just arrested recently. The domestic violence occurred earlier this season. But that being said, that's enough Pistons talk. It's time to hit the ice. In hockey news, the Red Wings continue their tease after losing 3-2 to the Boston Bruins in regulation, in which they were down 3-1. They jump out to a 5-2 lead early in the third period and then blow it thanks to a slashing match penalty, a 5-minute major and a game misconduct, which will soon be reported to the NHL Department of Player Safety, which give the Islanders life because they scored 4 goals in a 5-minute power play. In one 5-minute power play, they took a 6-5 lead, only to allow a Mike Green game-time goal with exactly 29 seconds left before Brock Nelson won the game in overtime with a hat-trick goal. The Red Wings thankfully settled for 1 point. They blew another 3-point lead in Washington and D.C. against the Capitals, only to force overtime before Tomas Tatar still won it for Detroit in overtime. That puts yet another dent in the tanking system for the Red Wings. While we as fans are pulling for them to get a high draft pick and to get Ken Holland out of their front office. But as you see, they got 3 points in the last 4 games. They're trying to just save Ken Holland's job when there's still no talks of an extension. And they're 6 points back of the Rangers, the New York Rangers, and they're still just 5th worst in the Eastern Conference. And there are a few teams ahead of them that are still trailing the Devils and the Hurricanes for those 2 wild card spots in the Eastern Conference. The Red Wings still stuck in mediocrity again, 22, 23, and 9, 53 points. 5th worst in the Eastern Conference. And as I take a look at the standings in the league, in the entire league, 8th worst in the NHL. Five to 4 was the overtime score in D.C., by the way. I didn't tell you that. If I did, I don't know, you tell me. But they're home against the Anaheim Ducks, who are in the middle of the pack in the league standings. They are 5th place in the Western Conference wildcard standings. The Wings are at the Tampa Bay Lightning Thursday at 7:30. Home against the Ducks Tuesday at 7:30. Then at Tampa Bay in St. Pete Thursday at 7:30. Then they're at the Nashville Predators Saturday at 8. Man, I hope the Red Wings really don't tease. They're just trying to tease a comeback for a playoff push and trying to save Hallett's job, only to suffer a first-round exit yet again like they did 2 years ago. They missed the playoffs last year. They're probably going to miss it again. They better not come back. And they don't have much of a shot to do so anyway. And then they're home against Mike Babcock's Maple Leafs, Toronto, Sunday at 7. They're home against the Predators a week from Tuesday at 7:30. Check out the rest of the schedule on DetroitRedWings.com or NHL.com. Another report from TSN, they've listed their top 50 NHL prospects. Only one of them for Detroit, Michael Rasmussen at 49, which tells you the Red Wings farm system, just like the Tigers farm system in baseball, is depleted. What else is there to say? Apparently, Michael Rasmussen is still with the Grand Rapids Griffins. If not, he's in Toledo with a Walleye. But speaking of the Tigers,
That one is long gone.
last Thursday we picked up a report. I listened to the radio on 98.5 UPS in Houghton Lake in my car while I was at a Shell gas station in downtown Cadillac. I heard that USA Today projects the Tigers to have an exact record of 63-99 and to finish with a worst record in the American League and the second worst in the majors, just one game ahead of the Miami Marlins, who are projected to have a 62-100 record. Let me check that again. This is MLB win totals. Actually, that's 3 games, just 3 games ahead. Pardon me, not 1, 3. USA Today projects the Marlins to finish 60-102. So I just corrected my mistake right there. So again, it's 3 games ahead for the Tigers ahead of the Marlins. Not 1. Tigers projected 63-99. Miami Marlins 60-102. So that's all the Michigan Sports Truth material in the week that was, and that's episode 303, the Week in Review on Spreaker, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Before I sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is searching for a wider local audience that is fans of sports. So please spread the word about the Michigan Sports Truth podcast and its Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth. That said, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's, and like the Michigan Sports Truth Facebook page and give it a share as well. Help us broaden our audience. I'll talk to you next week on episode 304. Hopefully Buck Gino will join us then. Follow him on Twitter at BuckGino III, 3 I's for Roman numerals. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.
Mission complete.